PodMoth.
Hey everyone, welcome to Freaky Fridays, the podcast where we talk about all kinds of scary, spooky, freaky shit.
We're your hosts, Michele and Melissa, and tonight we're going to talk about The Conjuring. This movie freaked me out.
Me too.
And I think mainly because of it being a true story.
Yes.
Which is most of the movies that freak me out are true stories.
Did you know that originally when they started developing this movie, it was actually supposed to be titled The Warren Files?
I did not.
Yes, and it was later retitled The Conjuring, and then they centered it around the alleged real-life exploits of, we all know and love, Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yes, and we definitely need to do a separate episode on Ed and Lorraine Warren. Well, probably a few episodes, but I think this was a great introduction to Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Absolutely.
And really put them on the map.
It's so crazy because they've been doing what they, for anyone who doesn't know, they're a married couple. They investigate paranormal events, and they've been doing it since the 1960s.
Yeah,
or had been doing it since the 1960s, and
which is not. I don't think of the 1960s as like a big paranormal.
No shit. A lot of shit happened back in the 60s and 70s, paranormal wise.
Right, and
which we'll get into.
That movie actually led me to a book by Gerald Brittle called The Demonologist, and it's a great synopsis of Ed and Lorraine Warren and kind of their life before and after they decided to get into the paranormal and demonology. So
that's cool.
And it's interesting, actually. I started re-listening to the book on Audible, not sponsored, and they really did a great job on The Conjuring of pulling in all those things from the Warrens' history. Like they would go and they would say, this is not normal experience. You just have some wood that is settling in the attic. Like it's not, like they were actually pretty down to earth.
For sure they were. And again, I know that we'll get into this in a whole different episode, but I think it's really cool though, first of all, how down to earth they were and realistic they were about things, and they,
which makes me believe them more.
Exactly. And
they're not some showboaters.
Right. I think though it's really cool how well they worked together as a married couple.
I know, it's so sweet. It's like
I just think it's
perfect relationship.
I mean, seriously, like you would think, because God only knows the things that they've seen, like, and the shit that they deal with, and just think about how like any normal day stressor can take a toll on a marriage or at least cause a fight or whatever, you know what I mean? But like the fact that they kept their shit together and seemed like they really loved each other and enjoyed what they did together, I just think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and how did they find, that's one thing I did not find in the audio book is how they kind of found each other. It just seemed like a chance meeting in college or something. Like it wasn't, I wanted more history on that, because to be brought together when you have both of those skills and talents and gifts,
that's pretty amazing. Because
that's incredible.
Normally it's only one person that has something like that, and then to find someone who
it's not complimenting,
right, like not necessarily has a gift as well, but believes in you and doesn't look at you and go, oh my God, this person's a freak, you know what I mean?
Crazy.
Like what are they? It's admirable, and it's, I just think it's very telling of their whole relationship and situation. It's what they do and how they help people.
Spooky love story that we all want and need.
It is. That's the real love.
And they're helping, and they never, I don't know how they made their money. I guess from the book they said they sold some art. They were both artists and they sold some pieces, but how did they make their money? Because they never charged anybody except for they would ask for room and board or hotel costs or travel costs, but they wouldn't charge people for their services.
luckily, especially back then when they were doing it, times were cheaper.
True.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
50 cents.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll pay for your gas. It was $2. Yeah, so we'll definitely have to do a whole
Yes.
Warren episode or continue on, because all of the movies in this series are based on true stories, like
Yes.
Annabelle, although sensationalized in the movie,
Of course,
are based on facts. And I want to
Right.
use facts as a hardened word, like it's not quote unquote facts. This has been deemed by the church that this has happened, and witnesses and everything. So
yes.
I want to say that this is true. This shit is true.
I believe in it. I believe in it.
So, well, okay. So we rewatched The Conjuring. I believe we watched it in the theater together. Obviously scarier in the movie theater.
Yeah.
For the first time watching.
I agree. Also, though, when you rewatch it and you're home by yourself when you go to bed and there's nobody around,
just waiting for those claps.
It's pretty scary. It is pretty scary. When we get into it, I'll let you know about a little. Nothing happened, but it was just, it stuck with me when I went to bed and for a good week.
Yeah, I would have to say until now, which has been maybe 2 weeks, I won't look in the mirror. If I go to the restroom in the middle of the night, will not look in the mirror.
I don't like to look in the mirror anyways, but
yeah, I mean, it didn't bother me as much before, but this is like conjured up some old fears.
Unintended.
Yes, pun intended. So for our listeners, do you have a freaky story you want to share?
If so, go to our website at freakyfridayspodcast.com, where you can email us or find us on Instagram at freakyfridayspod.
So in the beginning of the movie, this is where you see the Annabelle doll for the first time. However, we know it's really a Raggedy Ann doll. I'm sure the makers of Raggedy Ann, they didn't want to use that doll, so they created a creepy doll. And that's the first time that we kind of meet the Warrens.
Annabelle is in the opening scene, but then she kind of takes a back seat until towards the end of the movie.
Right, but it's a great introduction to the Warrens.
Absolutely.
And one of their first cases. So when they were talking about Annabelle in the beginning of this movie, it made me think about Ouija boards. How they said that this demonic spirit is using the doll. And I'm thinking, well, no wonder people have these experiences with Ouija board, even though they're made by Parker Brothers. I mean, you could essentially use anything.
Sure.
Creepy.
And I love the way that they describe Annabelle as an inhuman spirit.
Yeah, they're big on in the book, the demonologist book, is identifying if it's a human spirit or an inhuman spirit. And basically you're talking about people or the devil.
Right. Because you're not talking about people though if it's inhuman, right? Like, and that's why I like it, is because typically in all these paranormal type movies, obviously for the ones that aren't based off of real events, they always try to say that these spirits that are in your body or in a doll or whatever the case may be, it's another person taking on your life form. But they specifically say that Annabelle is an inhuman spirit.
Right.
And that's how I've always believed it to be. I don't believe that a human spirit can take on or take over
and that's not really what you hear in any quote unquote ghost story.
Right.
It's never somebody that has passed comes back into a object. It's always some demonic spirit fucking with you.
Right.
Which makes it all the more scarier.
So when I rewatched it, and at the beginning, of the movie, it opens and there's those two nursing. They go home to their apartment, and it reminded me of our last episode where we talked about things happening in the woods and whatnot, and we talked about knocks at the door. Right. And it happens, and it's Annabelle, and there's this silent knock at the door late at night, and here's these two women, young girls by themselves. Why the fuck do you answer the door?
Right. That's what peepholes were invented for.
Is anyone ever gonna learn?
No.
So it made me.
Well, maybe we have learned. That's why we don't hear as many stories nowadays.
Right? Like now we have the Ring doorbell and we have cameras and
Although
we have
there's some
fucking
creepy
texting. Hey, I'm at your
shit on-
door.
Yeah,
You know?
as you should.
Right? But when this scene opens, it immediately gets me spooked because it's that creepy knock at the door where there's no voice, no one's saying anything. It just feels super still to me. Like the air feels still. It just like I could only imagine being in
The
that apartment
anticipation,
when you kind of catch your breath and you're like, who the fuck is at the door in the middle of the night? Because they're not saying anything. And fuck, that's where it all unleashes right there with that fucking doll.
I mean, they could have not even done an Annabelle movie, and that part alone was scary enough.
Oh, for sure. It's a creepy looking doll to boot.
And everything that they said in the book that I was listening to is represented in the movie. The parchment paper, which who has parchment paper? But there was
I do. I bake with it.
Oh. Well, I think it's a different kind of parchment paper that they're right. Like I'm thinking old school,
like butcher paper,
1800s, maybe like butcher paper. I don't know.
1800s.
Well, they kept, like 1999. They kept talking about it being parchment paper, and I'm thinking old. But now that you said that, maybe it was like baking. I had that. But anyway, they didn't have parchment paper in the house, and they were finding these notes written in a pen, which they didn't have in the house, on parchment paper, which they didn't have in the house. So all of those facts were also in the book. And it was just really interesting that they crammed that all, like whoever did this movie, really good at kind of like giving you their backstory in 5 seconds.
Written by Chad Hayes, directed by James Wan.
Oh, thank you. James Wan did he do the Saw movies?
I told you, I don't mess with that shit, so I don't know. But I'm gonna. I said I would do it and I will. Only when I can watch it with you.
Insidious, The Conjuring, Furious 7. He did do Saw. He did Saw. He did the first. So James Wan did the first Saw. So
he's a sick fuck.
But good at his job.
But we love what you do, James.
We like what you do. Okay, so after we meet the nurses and their boyfriend and everything that are being traumatized by Annabelle, good backstory for the Warrens. Then we cut to the Perrin family, 1971, Rhode Island. They move into this new house. They sunk all their money into getting this new house. Beautiful house in the middle of nowhere. Kind of my dream right now.
Boatload of girls.
5 girls and the mom. And a dog. That poor guy.
I know.
I know. I love Ron Livingston. One of my favorite movies.
He was Burger in
yes,
Sex and the City.
Sex and the City and Office Space, one of my favorite movies. So love him. Feel terrible for him in this house with 5 women, 6 women and a dog. But and then we see the dog doesn't want to go into the house. Your pets.
That's what I was just gonna. That was like the biggest. That was like my first thing, aside from the creepy knock at the door, was the dog. And I don't even have pets, but I know that pets, especially dogs, are very in tune and can sense things. Not only can they feel vibrations, like if earthquakes are coming, but I am a firm believer that dogs know if people are not good.
Yep.
I believe that they can tell when there are spirits or things. Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned this before. There was one time, this was a couple years ago, I was babysitting my godson. And he was, I think, maybe 2 at the time. The living room is really open, and it faces sort of the dining area, which is also connected where the front door is.
Right.
I was in the living room, and this is when he was learning how to crawl and, all that stuff. So he had crawled from the living room and kind of got himself up the little stoop a little, and he was sitting there, and their dog was right next to him. So both the dog and my godson's backs were to me. And all of a sudden, both the dog and his little head tilted to the left, and he started waving. There was no one there that I could see.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, they say that infants and toddlers are still close enough to the other side because they've just been brought into the world.
Right.
If
more open to
yes,
receiving anything that might be out there. Yeah.
Right, because they don't know fear, they don't know anything, so they're very open to those things. So if not only the 2-year-old is tilting the head and waving, but the dog is tilting his head like he sees something, I was like, no, there is something here.
That kid's lucky you didn't run out and leave him.
There is
babysitter out
here. But I didn't feel like it was anything scary. I thought, well, maybe it's his grandfather that he never got to meet.
And that house is older, correct? Been around a while, been in the family a while.
Yes. So I mean, at first it tripped me out, and then like the more I thought, I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like, I think it might have been his grandfather that he never got to meet popping in to like see him, and the fact that he waved tells me it's friendly.
Right.
But that's where, you know, I really truly believe that dogs, and I'm sure cats, but I just think that dogs have this intuition about people. So in that opening scene, when the family's all excited and they're all running in, like looking for their rooms, the dog literally will not, and the dad's like calling him, and he will not, and he's barking and
pulling him, and he won't go in.
He never comes into the house.
No,
never comes into that house, that poor dog.
I know.
But I just thought that was, you know, it's spooky. It's like so creepy to see that when you're like, okay, the fucking dog won't go in the house.
I know.
But
trust the dog.
Trust the damn dog.
They didn't.
They
went ahead and moved in. So I have to bring up the wind chimes, because I know how you feel about wind chimes.
I do not like them. They have always haunted me. They've always creeped me out. They are eerie. And when anyone says that they're soothing, I'm like, you're fucking cuckoo bird, because they are not soothing. They are not soothing. I was
thinking about you the whole time. That the family's wind chimes, they hang them up, and I'm like, Missy would hate that.
I do.
Missy would rip that down.
I think people either love them or hate them. And I hate them. And I feel like maybe something when I was younger happened, but like maybe there was a place where I was uncomfortable and there was wind chimes, and that's always kind of stuck with me.
Hey, that's me and peppermint schnapps, so I get it.
Oh, me too, peppermint schnapps.
Who hasn't had a bad experience with peppermint schnapps?
Why the fuck did we drink that? It was like drinking liquid toothpaste.
So then the little girl finds the music box,
which is creepy.
And this music box looking like a 1930s circus tent. That enough would have been for me. And she doesn't show it to anybody. And then nobody thinks it's weird, like later on when they see that she has this thing. I don't know.
Well, I think first of all, she's a kid, so they don't really think much is weird. They're not fearful. They don't think things are weird. And then it was also the 70s.
Yeah,
people were a little bit more loose back then.
Free love and crazy music boxes, whatever. And then you see the girls playing this hide and seek with the clapping, which I've never heard before.
No, but it sounds quite fun. I think we should try it.
Because if I never saw this movie, I'd be like, yeah, let's try it. And now I'm like,
no, I still want to try it, but we can turn it into a drinking game.
Now you got me. Okay.
See?
Sold.
Yeah, so they get settled for bed.
That's when they find the hole in the closet.
Right.
Because they're fucking around and then run into the boards, and you see it's
all
like
fun and games until someone runs into a goddamn board and takes it out.
Releases the devil.
And human spirits.
It's all fun and games until the devil.
A damn devil gets in the way.
Yeah.
And the dad just like goes down there like it's, hand me a box of matches, I'm gonna light my way. And
when they clearly had a flashlight, like, why are you so
not even just the lighting, but like the cobwebs. I'm sorry, he just truffles through them like it's nothing. Let me just wipe them out of my way.
I would have been like, board it back up, we're never going down there, there's cobwebs, we will have a professional cleaner come.
I would have been like, I want 3 of you in front of me and 3 of you in back of me, and then we'll go down the stairs.
If I was Ron Livingston, I'd be like, you know what? You girls are gonna clean up that shit. I'm gonna use my 70s masculinity. Go ahead and clean it all up, and then I'll go down there tomorrow in the daylight. That's so funny you said that, because I wrote cobwebs.
It's sort of the equivalent of don't go into the forest. Don't go traipsing around the snow in the middle of nowhere in North Dakota. Like, don't open the door for someone who doesn't say who they are. You don't go down the stairs in the basement when you just moved into this creepy house in the middle of the night.
Cobwebs, and all you have is matches. Wait till
Come
the
on.
morning. Yeah, close it up. Block the door. Wait till the morning.
He must have been high on the pot.
It was the 70s, right? So let's keep in mind that there was probably pot, shrooms. So they're sleeping. I have to bring up here that when that whole thing's over, he comes back upstairs. They go to bed, and what's the thing with the 2 rollers in her hair? Was that like, I don't give a shit about the rest of my hair, but I'm just going to put 2 rollers in the front to make sure that looks good?
Maybe it was just to give the
I mean, I went to beauty school. I didn't see anything like that going on.
But this was also the 70s.
Hey, we were doing finger waves from the 20s. I should have known something about 2 rollers in the front of your hair. But
I mean, in the 70s, they had flat hair in the back, but
I guess
they had that Farrah Fawcett wave in the front. I don't know.
I sleep on my hair after washing it, and it looks like I've been in a coma for 10 years.
Sorry.
It does not sleep well. It does not age well. It doesn't work.
So now they're getting ready for...
Okay, so she has 2 rollers in her hair. And then we see the bruise on her leg, so we know that something weird's going on. Dog's freaked out, bruise on her leg.
My first thought was like she had leukemia, to be honest. Like no, I'm serious. Like I didn't think yet that it had already like gotten into that. I just thought, first of all, it's like, they're just introducing these people. Like you're
moving in and you have a bruise on your leg. That's probably not that concerning. You hit your leg on a box.
Okay, see, my mind went to leukemia. That's I'm not making fun of leukemia, so please don't. I just meant that, like, my catastrophic health anxiety mind goes, she's got leukemia. This is where this is going.
Okay. So all the clocks read 3:07, which I found extremely interesting because I'm probably going to ruin a future episode here. But the number 3 is the devil's number for patronizing or making fun of Father, Son, Holy Ghost. So 3, like there's always 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 knocks, everything comes in 3, like 3 drops of blood, 3 anything is like a fuck you to God, basically. So it's the
3 a.m. is the witching hour.
Right. Well, they say later why it's 3:07.
Oh, yes.
So the clocks read 3:07.
And there's also the smell in the daughter's room.
Yes. That's when the little girl's looking for the dog, screaming. They smell that smell.
And it just happens to disappear.
Right. As soon as they leave. Yeah.
She says it's like a rancid smell and like meat rotting or whatever. And then, but the smell goes away on its own. And see, and that's the thing, like we've talked about this before, personally, is my sense of smell is how I think I connect to loved ones and spirits that are, I've never seen anybody, but I've smelled things that have significant meaning to me with that person, and they will come and it will linger for a good 5-6 minutes, and then it just dissipates like it was never there.
Right.
And it made me instantly think of the first time I ever saw this movie, when that scene happened, when she's like, there's this smell, but no one else could smell it at first. And I'm like, oh, okay, so there's a soul there, there's something there. They want her to know that they're there.
Right.
But then later in the movie, they smell it in other places as well.
Right. And they do associate the evil spirits or the devil to that rotting meat smell or that decrepit smell. So and then they go outside and they look for the dog who was barking earlier. And I'm sad to say, because I'm a dog lover, but the dog dies. So you gotta deal with that. But wondering if that's true, the dog was dead. So huge red flag.
And did you, and I mean, not to skip ahead in the movie, but did you happen to notice that in the scene where the mom first sees that dead bird that hit the window, that bird dies in the same exact spot that the dog died in?
I did not notice that.
So it made me feel like, okay, there's something, spirit or energy or something in that area where they're dying. Right there. And it's outside on the side of the house. And
which you find out later outside is a significant area. So interesting. I did not notice that. So the next scene is they're back at the Warrens. Another good like recap. They're showing some like journalist or somebody their museum area, or I don't know what you call it, like their office where they keep
their do not enter office.
Do not fucking touch this shit.
Right.
And you find out that they have a daughter,
Judy.
Yes. I wonder what she's doing nowadays.
This room that's literally kept under lock and key, has all of these tangible items that have been possessed or tainted or whatever you want to call it. There, it's and one of the main things in there is the Annabelle doll, right? And she's locked up in this big showcase glass case, and it says under no circumstance, like do not fucking open this, right? And this room is just full of all of these different kinds of
not even
toys.
Imagine.
There's one of those clapping monkeys, and like
just like the most mundane or innocent things that you would see in like a Goodwill, and then you go in there and you're like, oh my god, that's possessed.
And don't you find it strange that a lot of these things are like considered children's toys?
I didn't even think of that.
I mean, a lot of the stuff they have in there are like kids' toys or things that they would play with, or you would associate with a child. The doll, the monkey, just the wind-up toy box, like all that stuff is like
I wonder if they use those kid items to get to the children that are more open. Like, I wonder if there's a whole...
I think so.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that. I did hear that the Warrens would have a priest come in every month and bless that room to keep things at bay.
That's interesting.
But yeah, I couldn't imagine that being in my house. I'd probably have a shed in the back that I kept all that in. And
I think for Ed and Lorraine, the adults that was their job and that's what they did, I think for them it was probably considered normal for them, like like weird. I think about their daughter, who's just a little girl at the time, and the grandmother that's living there helping to take care of their daughter, because they travel quite
so
often,
much,
right? To me, I think about her and the little one, like, what does that feel like? It would feel like having some
like a weight,
murderer like
heavy,
locked up in your room. Like, there's got to be a certain energy that, and who knows, maybe they don't feel it like Ed and Lorraine do, I don't know, but
or they're used to that feeling,
right? I don't know, it's just weird just knowing though that, because like even when I was watching it, Brian had come in on that part when I was watching it, and he was like, I can't even imagine that poor little girl, like what she must be thinking, like, why can't I go in here, and why is it locked up, but there's all these toys in here, and like and like
that's a good point.
Like, it's so
she was at that age that those kind of things would be
toys.
And very curious. It's crazy.
So we see their creepy room.
And then we're back at the haunted house, the New Jersey house. Their second night in, the clock stops again. This is when we start seeing the girl's leg being pulled, them smelling the smell. And that's the kind of shit that is so freaky to me. That plays on all of my childhood fears of making sure that you're all covered up, making sure no limbs are hanging out, making sure that nothing can grab you from under the bed. Like, they did a great job on fucking with me.
They did it so well that as an adult, when I rewatched it, this was what I was going to tell you, is for a good week to a week and a half afterwards, you know how sometimes when you're sleeping, you're like, I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm hot, I'm cold, and like you'll stick a leg out. That night when I went to bed, I went to stick a leg out, and I like sucked it back up, and I was like, nope, I don't. I'm not fucking kidding you. For a good week to a week and a half, I could not have my legs out of the blankets for fear that somebody was going to grab me and pull me off my bed.
I feel you. I know.
There's so many things that come with that for me, and part of that, like being afraid of the dark thing, like we've talked about. I've been afraid of the dark since I was a kid, and I have my reasons for being afraid of the dark, but I've always felt safer having a blanket on me. So like even when it gets really hot, once I've relaxed
funny, Nick
enough,
says the same thing. He wants that weight on him.
Yep. Once for me, it's not the weight, it's more of like, it feels like this protective shield. If someone's gonna break into the house, I don't want them to get me while I'm laying here exposed. I want my blanket on me.
I don't know what that is. I think it's every kid feels like that.
I don't want a skinny dip in the ocean because I don't want a shark to get me while I'm naked.
I don't want anything biting any part of me.
But I feel more exposed if I didn't have a bathing suit on.
Yeah.
It feels scary. And I know people probably
I never understand.
What a whack job. But
I never understood skinny dipping.
In a swimming pool, it's one thing. But in the ocean where there are sharks, I feel more exposed, and I don't care if
there's just shrimp in there. Like I don't want to do it.
You don't feel as secure, I think.
Right.
For me,
the exposure.
I don't feel as safe.
You know what? I would love to talk. This is totally offsides, but I would love to talk to those people that are nudist. Like, do they feel like that? Because
obviously not.
Constantly exposed. Like, talk about that. Okay.
So anyhow.
Right after the whole leg pulling and she smells the smell, I just thought this was funny because the TV plays snow, and I was like, oh my god, oh yeah, TV didn't used to be 24 hours a day.
I know, isn't that crazy?
So that's so funny in the 70s.
That shit runs all night now if you forget to turn it off.
I know, Cosby Show all night long. Actually, after this movie,
it wasn't Little Lulu.
It was not Little Lulu. I had to watch. I just turned on whatever comedy thing I could, and it was The Cosby Show. Okay, so Dad hears noises. The doors open.
Fuck no to the closet doors opening.
Right.
In their armoire, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, the door open in the front.
Oh yes. Sorry, I jumped ahead.
And then the kid starts sleepwalking, which is fucking creepy. You're familiar with this whole sleepwalking thing.
This sleepwalking is different.
Yeah.
This sleepwalking involves banging her head against
right. She walks into the sister's room and she's banging her head against the wardrobe. So, okay, Mom wakes up. She has another bruise. Dad leaves for work. That's when the bird runs into the window. And then the little girl is talking to somebody. Rory.
Her friend.
Right, her friend
that we
Rory.
Cannot see.
Right, and who isn't necessarily bad, but kids talking to somebody that's not there, so it's kind of creepy, which makes me think about all of the, what's it called when you have an invisible friend when you're young? Why does that sound weird?
Imaginary friend.
Okay, thank you. So she meets Rory, her imaginary friend, and when the music stops, he's supposed to be behind you in the mirror in that music box. Okay, so then they're playing that hide and clap freaking game again. And that's when the wardrobe opens because the mom's playing with the little girl who says, nobody will ever play with me. And those weird dead arms come out and clap. And then the little girl comes behind her and says, you took your mask off. So we obviously know. If we hadn't figured it out already, something weird's going on in the house. The husband's going to Florida.
He's probably like, fuck this shit, I'm out of here.
Yeah, he's probably so excited. Although he doesn't really know what's going on. Okay, so the girls are sleeping again, yanks their leg. The whole thing about her looking under the bed, I was shitting myself.
Yeah, I can't lie. I had to look away for a second for fear of like, and then I did one of these where I'm like looking through because I couldn't remember what happened.
Let me tell you my secret.
What is it?
I look at the very bottom of the screen or the very top left of the screen and let my peripheral take in whatever's scary. That helps me a lot.
For me, it's not like the jumping or the scare. It's more of like, what am I going to see? It doesn't scare me that something's going to be there. I know something's going to be there.
Yeah, we're expecting that.
But what am I going to, like, it's more of the visual for me. Like, is it going to be something
that won't leave my brain?
That won't leave my brain. When I rewatched this movie, I felt like it was going to be like when I rewatched Nightmare on Elm Street, where I was going to be like, oh my God, this is so cheesy. And it's not, folks. It's fucking real. The paranormal shit is real. And it had me right back in that spot of kind of being on the edge of my seat, being a little freaked out. And then when it came to bedtime, I was fucking fully freaked out. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this.
Right.
Paranormal, religious shit, exorcist, like it all kind of like, that's the real spooky shit.
Which is everything that they dealt with. So, so she looks under the bed. Oh God, that whole part, which made me really like that little actress, Joey King. She just made me want to cry when she's like, there's somebody behind the door. I was
fantastic.
freaking out. I knew what was going to happen at this point because I'd already seen the movie, and I was freaking out.
But she is fantastic at her part. She is a fabulous actress. It has been since a very young age, but in that moment you really feel for her. She is great. She is so frightened. Her sister didn't wake up at first, and then when she does, her sister's like, I don't see anything, and she's so believable. Those tears are flooding, and she's like, but I mean, she's visually, visibly shaking, and you're just like, oh my God, this poor thing, like whatever she can see right now must be horrific to make her feel that way. And it makes you feel what she's feeling because she's so good at that part. But it also made me feel like I want to see it. I want to see what she's seeing, like because
You're
don't
like
see
that
it.
morbid curiosity. You're like, what is she looking at? I want to see that. And then her saying that whoever she's seeing says to her that wants her family dead. That's so disturbing.
Right. When this is happening, then they start screaming. Isn't that the scene where the mom and dad come in there?
Yes.
The dad's consoling her, and then the closet.
She said somebody's in the room. So he's like looking behind the shirts.
Right. And I'm thinking to myself, fuck no, I would not be opening any more doors and looking in there for anything.
Peace out, I'm going to Florida.
Yeah. I'd be like, kids, you can sleep in mommy and daddy's room tonight. Let's all huddle together, safety in numbers.
So then we're back at the Warrens. They're checking out a case, which I love that had a rational explanation because they show that they're not these crazy people that are just trying to make money or that think that every little noise, kind of like that damn Zach Baggins, that every little noise is like a ghost or something.
Yeah.
They're rationalizing that the pipes and the wood with the air coming in is making these creaky sounds. So
I think it also shows that they're good-natured people, right? Like that they're honest people. That they're, even though we still don't know how they get paid, I can't really say that they're taking you for your money because
they're not trying to take advantage. They're
they're honest,
there to help,
legit people. I just feel like the Warrens did not try to take advantage of people or like the limelight.
I do like that they included that because they did actually talk about that in the book. They would frequently go out and dispel any kind of ideas of this is a ghost. They would say, this is probably your pipes or your old wood or whatever. They weren't there for...
Nobody wants old wood.
Old saggy wood.
Don't talk about pipes and old wood in one sentence.
Creaky wood? Nobody wants that. So we're back at the haunted house in New Jersey. Their mom's getting more bruising.
I was just going to say that, like, significantly.
Yeah, which... At this point, we need to be concerned because it's not just one bruise. You're done moving. If you had leukemia, it should have been diagnosed. This should be cause for concern.
But again, we're talking about the 70s and things were not as big of a concern to people.
Very true. Yeah.
Paranormal or not, ghost aside, the average person didn't
go to the doctor.
Not like we do now.
No, I have one little tickle in my throat and I'm at the doctor.
Oh my God, me too. COVID. Just kidding.
Allergies.
Okay. They were just like, oh, put some ointment on it, I'll be fine. Or
drink some water.
Yeah, take some Advil and you'll be fine. Like her bruising at this point is so significant that how are you not concerned?
Right.
The husband is.
When he's home, yes.
When he gets home, yes. But like, how are you not looking at it like, what the fuck was I doing to myself? How did this happen?
Then it's at night and then you hear the clapping and the girls are asleep. Everybody's asleep. This is the mom hearing the clapping. And then this is when all the photos fall off the wall, which nobody wakes up to.
Smashing. Falling off the wall.
Huge pictures.
Breaking.
Yeah, everywhere. And again, it's 3 a.m. She decides to go down and check the basement.
She does. But first of all, let's back up a second here. Even before she gets to the basement, when you peek your head out and you see all of the perfectly aligned framed pictures on your wall that lead up a stairway are all falling and smashing to the ground by themselves.
Hide in the bathroom.
Why, first of all, are you fucking going downstairs to check out the goddamn clapping noise in the basement? And secondly, how have you not packed up your girls and said, fuck it, we're going to a motel for the night?
Yes.
But you're going to go investigate the strange noise.
Mm-hmm. I did read on IMDb that one of the Perrin family said that James Wan did a very good job of depicting everything as true as it happened. So, pictures falling off the wall. Why the fuck are you going to check it out? I'd be hiding in the closet or in the bathroom. Definitely not in the closet.
That's what I mean, though. Like, I get this was a movie and they're trying to show you a story. I fully get that. But if you were in this situation for real, 1,000% honesty, what would you have done in that situation when 10 different framed photos are literally being thrown off and smashed?
Huddled in my bed or gathered up the kids and got the fuck out of there.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't just me who thought that way. And that's why
Although she did get told later that if you leave,
it will follow.
Spirits will follow you. But I would risk it. The house is freaking me out.
Because like I that's one of my notes is about the pictures falling and smashing, and I have in parentheses, why stay ? So when you say that the writer kept it as real as he could, does that mean that they literally stayed there through all this shit going on? The mom never thought once to like take the girls and get out of the house?
Yeah, and experienced these kind of super crazy things that are going on. So, okay, so all that shit falls off. 3 a.m. There's that clap again, and she goes and checks out the basement.
This clap? Love that part.
I distinctly remember this in the theater. Just fucking freaking me out. So the mom goes, checks out the basement. The door closes on her. She falls down the stairs, and then the ball is like thrown out.
She doesn't just fall down the stairs.
Thrown down the stairs.
Fucking is harshly thrown down these.
Right.
And we're talking about a 1970s basement on the East Coast, okay?
Yeah.
Concrete fucking everywhere. Concrete steps. Like, she's hurled.
Well, wood steps.
Like an Olympic hurler has thrown her down.
Hey, what's an Olympic hurler?
I don't know, but you know when they hurl something in the Olympics, they shot put it and they...
She was shot put, yes. I agree.
She was fucking thrown down these stairs and lands on this concrete and basically bounces up and is like, look at, and it's like,
I would have been back up those stairs so fast. I wouldn't need stairs. I would have
laid in the fetal position and cried until somebody found me.
I would have gotten the fuck out of there. I mean, basements are creepy anyway, right?
If the pictures falling and smashing on their own wasn't enough, being Olympically hurled off the basement stairs.
No good can come after pictures are being thrown off the wall. Like,
and again, it is 3:07, is it not?
It's 3 a.m. in the morning.
Okay,
this is
so
when
get your ass
she goes into the
back
basement.
in bed, under the covers, or get to a fucking hotel, motel, holiday inn.
Say what? Because you need to stop investigating.
Don't do it. Don't investigate. If Freddy Krueger taught you anything,
scary sounds are
if
not to be
Scream
investigated.
Taught you anything, you do not investigate the strange noises.
No.
We should teach a class on how to survive.
Yes. Okay, the ball comes out. She freaks out and she runs back up the stairs, but she can't open the door. And that's when she has the matches and she's saying whatever she's saying. And those fucking hands come out and clap next to her head. And I lost my mind.
I love when they do that. That's it. Scene over. They don't embellish on it. It's just, you hear the clap, lights out, and that's it. Like, they don't try to make it any more than what that is.
I feel like I'm finally getting over this movie and talking about it again. It's like,
and now I'm clapping. But no, I'm seriously, like, I love that they don't harp on that. It's just, they keep it, the creep factor is there. She's sitting there with the single match. The hands come right next to her ears. They do the little clap, and then it's pitch black. The scene moves on. It leaves you wondering, like, well, wait, what the fuck? Like, what was that? Because
who was that?
In other movies, they would have totally played on that scene and made it so unrealistic,
like
and
a
stupid.
Weird face coming out. And,
right.
Yeah.
She wasn't bleeding from her ears. Like, there was just nothing stupid like you would normally see. And and that is what makes it scary, because it's so realistic.
So after that, the little girl is sleepwalking again.
And this is when she starts banging her head.
Right. And this is when you see that freaky fucking lady on top of the dresser or the wardrobe.
Right. See, for me, when I saw that part in my mind, I was like, okay, here we go. Now the cheese fest is going to start.
I agree. I was like, oh, we're going to see like this weird, but when the face came up, I was like, holy shit, that scared the crap out of me.
For me, like we've established, it's the things we can't see that are most creepy and scary and real, like the silence, the dark, the empty knocks at the door where nobody's talking back. When it becomes tangible to me is when it becomes less scary. But then you see this person's face and you're like, oh fuck. But the fact that you see it for a split second and it doesn't really do anything to make it cheesy, it kept up the scare factor for me.
Yeah, that's the best part about any scary movie is when they don't reveal the thing that is the scariest. It's you leave it up to your own imagination.
Exactly.
Then they cut to the Warrens in like that classroom auditorium and they're talking about infestation.
College, right?
Right. And actually, I read in the trivia on IMDB that Lorraine Warren was one of the people that was in the front row. She did a cameo. She was in the front row of the audience.
The real
Lorraine Warren. Yes.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so they talked about infestation, which is whispering and noises, oppression, which is vulnerable victim, and then possession, which is obvious. Okay, so we talked about the whole infestation, oppression, and possession thing. And then we cut back to the spooky, scary haunted house. They're watching the Brady Bunch, and the Warrens come in. This is their first interaction with the family where they find out about all this, how they smell weird shit, how the banging comes in threes on the walls. The birds are flying into the walls or the windows and dying. The clocks are stopping at 3 a.m. The wardrobe is creepy and the cellar's creepy.
Lorraine goes outside.
Yes, and sees the woman hanging from the tree. And they said, the family says, we wanted to leave. And they're like, well, you can, but the entity's attached to you. Yeah. So yeah, good luck with that. So we're back at the Warrens. This is when she exchanges the necklaces with daughter. Mm-hmm. They go back and listen to the recording, and the mom's voice is nowhere to be heard. They find out the history of the house, about how many people have died there, which is funny because I found out later that in New Jersey, I guess they don't have that whole clause. When you buy a house, they have to disclose people that have died there.
Really? That's interesting.
The state of Rhode Island does not require home sellers to disclose documented histories of a location's criminal activity, let alone alleged paranormal or supernatural hauntings, to potential buyers. This is why the parents were unaware of all previous events.
Interesting.
Yeah, the Warrens are talking about all of this happening, and then at 3:07, the recorder starts to play. And so obviously 3:07 is a very important time. Mm-hmm. The Warrens go to the house and do their investigation, and that's when we're introduced to the cop.
It's just such an odd thing to throw in there.
Yeah, like I kind of feel like, is this the comic relief that we should be expecting in a typical horror movie, or what's going on? They're setting up all the cameras and the bells, thermostat, mics. They're setting up all the crosses to kind of instigate.
Well, yes, because if there is evil there,
it will piss off the spirits. Right?
Yes.
And then, so they're all set. So this is when the shit starts happening. Like the cellar door opens, they go downstairs. Lorraine feels sick. They go back up the stairs. The piano's playing or something. The door slams. So all this stuff's going on. And then the next day, everybody's happy. They're all having breakfast. They're in the kitchen. The mom's like, I need to take a nap. And we know that she's kind of infested, or like something's taken over her.
Something's taken over. She's not quite Carol Brady anymore.
Yeah. Apparently nobody calls her out on this shit, but she's acting weird. And then Lorraine's outside doing her laundry. and then that big wind comes up and the figure is shown with the laundry sheet, which creeped me out. And then it like throws upstairs, and then you see that witch come over the mom, and it spits like this blood shit in the mom's mouth. And then the mom's like fucking weird. Like that, like that'll.
She goes from 0 to 100 real quick.
Right. It's it's a snap of the fingers. So Ed tells Lorraine's story to the father. All of a sudden it's nighttime. Cops getting coffee. Fucking wind chimes again.
Goddamn wind chimes.
Rocking chairs going. He hears voices. He goes outside.
God damn.
So he sees that ghost. He follows it. The little girl starts walking. Like there's so much going on. The little girl starts walking, and like something's going on behind her because all the cameras start going off and everything's cold. And then they're using the UV light. They find the hidden spot in the wardrobe. Again, fucking spider webs. They go into the wardrobe and there's all these spider webs and like all this hidden shit. And it's like, why are you crawling back there? I just... So they bring the music box and they put it in there, and Lorraine finds like a rope and she starts pulling it up, and it's a fucking noose. And then all of a sudden Lorraine falls through the wall to the basement, and there's a lot of like scares going on. She freaks out, she runs, her necklace gets caught, pulls off of her neck, so it's warning with the daughter. The family finally leaves. They go to a hotel, and the Warrens bring all the proof to the church because they have to prove all this stuff before they can get somebody to be approved to do an exorcism. Right. So their daughter, the Warren's daughter, Judy, is sleeping and her leg starts getting pulled. Did shit transfer through the necklaces? Like, what's the correlation of that? Like, they throw everything together in a blender there. Judy's looking for her parents. The evil room opens. They're scaring the shit out of the little girl. The Annabelle doll is out, like freaking out. So the Warrens drive all the way back to the home to comfort their daughter. So then the parents are at this hotel, and then the mom takes the kids and takes them back to the home. So now the Warrens have to get back in their car.
Because again, this was before cell phones.
Right.
Or
Nobody.
pagers.
How did they find this out? They must have had a phone call to the house phone.
They had
on the wall.
Rotary call the
smoke signals and
Batmobile signal.
This is where the birds start flying in to the side of the house. That means that death is looming. We see shit levitate. I'll be honest, this is where I'm like, are we pushing the movie thing a little bit too much? Are we getting past the truth?
Because at this point we're talking full-on exorcism, levitation, the crazy eyes, the change in the face, full structure change in the face.
We're crawling through the walls of the house. We're threatening the daughter. Like it's
making
a little
weird noises. This is when it got a little cheesy.
But
I still firmly believe that there have been real incidences of exorcisms needing to take place in real life. However, I don't know that I necessarily agree. Just like in The Exorcist, I don't know that I necessarily agreed that her head spun around and she barfed up green pea soup. So this is sort of that same, I think they take it up a notch for the scare factor because it is a movie, but who's to say that that's not how it really happens? I don't know, because I've never actually witnessed it in person.
And you have to take that, I guess, with a grain of salt.
I think so, because for movies that are being made now or even 10 or 20 years ago that have to do with exorcisms or any paranormal situation, we have not really witnessed it. And so we don't know for a fact. It might happen during an exorcism. It might not. We don't know. So I think you have to, like you said, take it with a grain of salt. They're sort of doing what they would imagine happens during a situation like this.
So all of a sudden, they talk her out of this possession. All is good. The Warrens are back home. They add that music box to the collection. And then they say, we got a call. We have a case in New Jersey. which is the Amityville case, which is the
Right.
most famous case. And then the music box plays, and you're waiting for the anticipation of that music box playing and finishing out the song, and with the mirror in the background. I almost pissed my pants, like just waiting for that to happen. So that ends, and then what I love is during the credits they have the real people with the pictures, and they say these are the parents, these are the girls, these are who played them.
Right.
One thing that I found interesting on IMDb is it said 8 generations of families lived and died in the house before the Perrons moved in. Andrea Perron suggested that some of the spirits from the families never left. Deaths included 2 documented suicides, a poisoning death, the rape and murder of an 11-year-old girl, 2 drownings, and the passing of 4 men who froze to death. Most deaths occurred within the Arnold family, from which Bathsheba Sherman was descended. So I took that as Bathsheba Sherman had
That's a mouthful.
kids. I know, I could barely get that out. She had kids, and which was the Arnold family, and most of these deaths occurred in that family. That is a ton to deal with at a house. So
that's a lot of negative energy right there.
Yeah. So the other interesting thing I found out was that in real life, Ed and Lorraine Warren were kicked out of the house as they were not able to help the parents.
Interesting. Did you know that you can actually stay at the Conjuring House?
Oh my God. What?
So it's obviously not the house that you see in the movies, but the real Conjuring House. It's located in Earlville, Rhode Island. It's about 25 miles northwest of Providence. It's the farm on Round Top Road. It's now that they call it now, and it dates back to the 1730s.
Jesus.
It's primarily known for its creepy events that happened in the 1970s as reported by Ed and Lorraine Warren, but you can actually stay there. You can rent it out and stay there.
Oh God, who'd want to do that?
And if you I would. If you look it up, it's legit, like in the middle of nowhere, so rustic looking, and there's just all this greenery
like it looks in the movie, right? Very secluded.
Yeah, I want to go. I want to stay. It's about $125 per person to stay.
That's not bad.
But that's during the week. If you stay on Fridays and Saturdays, it's a flat rate of $750 for 6 people.
Good Lord. For 6
people.
So we can get 6 people to stay in.
Yeah, I
wonder if there's still like activity that's going on, or
I don't know. And people rent it out all the time to stay there on Halloween. I think it's crazy.
You're just asking for
but you should look it up. It's actually really, really pretty. Like there's like 2 houses right connected to each other, and there's just all this property around it, and I just want to go stay there so bad.
I bet. I would be happy to just even go visit.
Yeah. I feel like with the way the movie ends that it should sort of lead us into our next episode of
you have to go to the next. Yeah, you have to go to Amityville.
So I hope everyone will come back with us and take a little trip to Amityville. And I'm not talking the remake with hot Ryan Reynolds.
Right.
If we look into the original and what it's really about, we got to take it back.
Andrea, which is one of the daughters, wrote a book called
She's the oldest daughter.
Wrote a book called House of Darkness, House of Light, which is the true story behind The Conjuring. That is my next read. So do you think that we should do, well, full disclosure to our listeners, all 8 of them. We did Freddy Krueger, I was going to say Nightmare Before Christmas. Nightmare on Elm Street had audio problems, so we will be redoing that one. But I feel like our next one would be Amityville Horror.
I agree 100%. And I actually know people that have performed, if you will, in the Amityville area.
Oh.
Like bands may have driven by the house.
Oh.
Yeah, so I need to get their input on that. Get your ass back here next Friday. I know that for myself and my sister, we've had whispering before happen to us.
Mhm.
I didn't realize that was called infestation.
They talk a lot about in the book how you react to those kind of things, like with Annabelle. If you welcome them, if you
Mhm.
invite them, then you will move on to the next phase of oppression and possession, where when you just hear that infestation, if you ignore it, if
And that's what
you,
I do.
yeah, don't acknowledge it or
I
say,
don't.
go away,
Yeah.
that's when you can cut it off at the root or whatever.
I know that she and I both, and actually, our brother, one of our brothers, one of his girlfriends from a long time ago, when we had this conversation, she actually said that she used to experience the whispering too. And when I say whispering, what I mean is when we're sleeping at night, we
Mhm.
hear our names being whispered.
Mhm.
And I've heard and read different things that it could mean.
Well, that's interesting. I want to know because my friend Melissa,
Mm-hmm.
when we were kids, we were out in the garage and we heard her name being whispered. It was torrential rain outside, but we both heard somebody calling her name.
So I've read different things. The one thing that has really stuck with me is that I've heard that if you hear it and it sounds like a man's voice, that it's an evil spirit.
Hmm.
I've also heard that if you hear it while you're sleeping, that it's a loved one that's passed that is trying to connect with you and reach you.
Mhm.
So it's hard to say because every time I've heard it, it's always been a male's voice. But I don't feel scared when it calls me. I
Right. I would
just
feel like the feeling would be the biggest factor in determining if it's evil or.
I, I don't feel scared. I just, it startles me because it's usually has happened when I've just fallen asleep or whatnot. And I can't speak for my sister, but I know for me, I don't feel scared. I hear it and I just kind of, I don't acknowledge it. I don't do anything or say anything. I don't like freak out. I just try to go back to sleep. But I've been hearing my name being whispered for, oh God, probably honestly, it started at my parents' old house in Hayward.
Really?
Yeah, which we know that
Shit.
the the original. So they lived on a street called McKeever,
Hmm.
and the original couple that lived in that home, the original man died in that home,
I did
and
not know
that's where
that.
I first started hearing it. So I was
Oh,
probably I was very early in my 20s. I was probably 21.
I didn't
Um,
know that.
Yeah. And that's when I first started hearing it. And I've since then, I've lived in two different places. When I left my parents' house and moved in with Brian, I heard it a couple of times.
Hmm.
Since I've been in this home that we bought almost 10 years ago, I've only heard it once and that was it.
Hmm.
And I haven't heard it again. And
Interesting. Like, I
I'm
wonder if it's the same
fully awake.
person or if
I don't,
it's like
right?
your
Yeah.
father, somebody
But see,
attached to you.
right. And I used to think, I mean, obviously, when it started in McKeever, my dad was still alive.
Hmm.
Um, and so when I first started hearing it, I legitimately thought it was my dad calling my name, like trying to wake me up. But I know it wasn't him. And it always sounds the same. And it's not even my dad's voice, but it has always sounded the same. And I think my sister said hers was a male too. I have two grandfathers and a step grandfather that passed before I even got to meet them.
Hmm.
So I personally think it's one of my grandfathers.
Yeah, it's interesting that if it was this person from McKeever, that it's saying your name when it's not really connected to you. Like,
Right.
it's
And I
the
don't think it
prior
was
on.
that person. That's just when it started. But,
Hmm.
and that's also, I mean, that's the house that we lived in when my dad passed. My dad didn't pass in that house, but the day before my dad ended up or the night before my dad ended up in the hospital when he did pass, that night before, he had told us he had a dream that my noni and my nana, so my nana is my dad's mom, my noni is
Hmm.
my mom's mom, and they've passed. He had a dream that they were both coming down the stairs towards him and told him it was time to go. And then my dad was rushed to the hospital the next day. And then he
Wow.
passed that night or that next day. I just feel like there
Crazy.
was something in that house. I never felt quite settled in that house. There was definitely something there. And we've had pictures, and I'm talking about like when you actually had to develop film. And I'm sure you've seen some of them where there's pictures that we've taken like of our niece and our
Hmm.
nephew or whatever,
Some
because
weird background. Yeah.
there's some weird thing in the background. There's a presence there. There's an orb or whatever. And it's like And, we used to have big family parties there, and we used to take all kinds of pictures, and just never felt quite at peace there. So I don't know. I think it's something
Do you
that
feel at peace at home where you are now?
I do.
Good.
And even when like I moved from that and we moved in with Brian into his place before we bought our home together, I only heard my name being whispered a few times at the old place, and then it stopped, and then we moved here and I heard it like maybe once or twice, and that was it. Mandy, my daughter, who has become very aware of her gifts that she has and spiritual things and whatnot, she has done a lot of work with the shaman, and I did a via the phone, did like a meet with her and the shaman, and she pulled this card for me one night, and it had a lot to do with ancestors that I've never met. She was very clear that they are still right next to me guiding me. So that's why I feel like it was a grandfather trying to reach me, and when I didn't respond, they wanted me to know that I am still, that they're still here, but they don't have to physically say it anymore.
Interesting.
I personally find comfort in it because, again, I never got to meet some of them. And I mean, I don't know, I just find it comforting that there's people who are there guiding me, who are right. Because
and if you don't feel that bad energy,
no, I don't feel bad energy at all. Like I don't feel scared by it. I welcome, like if it's a loved one, if it's an ancestor, whatever, like I welcome that. I don't think that they're here to harm me. I think that they're here to help guide me. And I feel like in the past several months, I've done a lot of growing for myself. And I know you know what I'm talking about. And I've changed a lot of things about myself, and I've really grown. And I feel like part of me is like, okay, maybe they were there guiding me. Like maybe they were there pushing me, because when she pulled these cards for me, she said, they know that you're struggling right now, and they know that you're struggling with decisions to make. And they want you to know that it's okay to do what you feel is best for you. And I ended up doing what I felt was best for me. And I haven't been as happy as I have been in a long time. And I haven't taken care of myself like I have in such a long time. And I haven't stuck with routine and really making myself more number one than I have anybody else, and not feeling bad about it.
Good.
So for me, like, other people could be like, oh, whatever, I don't believe in that. And that's fine. You don't have to. But for me, I feel like as soon as she told me that, and then I started working on myself and working on other things, it just kind of all came together. And then there's someone I work with who actually, she's leaving our company because she's been really honing in on her craft, which is like energy healing. So she's actually leaving our company, our 9 to 5 job, and she's focusing on helping people. And there's been a few times where she's reached out to me, and we don't talk all the time. And she's reached out to me and said, you've been on my mind. I feel like I need to pull a card for you. And she's pulled a card and read it to me. And it's exactly what I was feeling in that moment.
That's crazy.
And, right? She's going to be making a road trip, and she's going to come here, and she's actually going to do some healing work with me. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. And this is someone that I work with. I don't talk to her every day.
Right.
But every now and then she'll reach out and be like, you were on my mind, and this is why. And so, I mean,
that's
there's
awesome.
Just, there's just a lot of things that make me feel like
as long as it's all positive, even if people don't believe in this thing,
right?
It's positive and it's helping you.
Yeah.
More power. I believe in it, but if anybody listening didn't,
right. And that's
how can you deny that? Yeah.
But if you don't believe in it, it's okay. But also, if I do believe in it, don't fucking give me shit and rain on my parade for it. Because if it's making me feel better, right? Like even like last week when I had my therapy session, which I do every week, I was telling my therapist, I was like, for the last 2 weeks, I've felt this heaviness like in my chest, this weight on me, this weird anxiousness out of nowhere. And she's like, oh, it's because some of the planets weren't aligned at the time. And
wait, your therapist said that?
Yeah, she's like, there's a weird energy right now. She's like, there's something going on with Mars. We're in the Pisces planet right now, or the Pisces moon. Sorry, we're in the Pisces moon. And she's like, there's something going on with Mars, and it causes a heavier energy. So it's not unusual that you would feel that way. And I did for 2 weeks. And then those 2 weeks passed, and I felt it lifted again. And so it's like, I get it's not for everybody, but don't give shit to the people who believe in it, and it gives them comfort.
And maybe you're just more in tune with your body and yourself than you are with the people that don't believe in it. The people
Right.
that don't believe in it may not be more open to those kind of things. And if you're more in touch with the universe and it affecting your moods and feelings, everybody's different in different ways.
Right.
Yeah.
And my friend that I work with that is focusing on the energy healing, I told her, like, I kind of joked about how I kind of felt like my anxiety that I get is sort of like a superpower. She goes, "Oh, it absolutely is. You just have to learn how to use it in a beneficial way." She knows that I am an empath, and I will get from time to I own my own anxiety that I get, panic attacks that I get. I've had them since I was 14, 15 years old. But more recently, I have been able to tell the difference between my own and when I'm feeling someone else's.
Interesting.
And I've never felt that before.
That
I've
is
never had that.
I've never even heard that before. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never had that clarity before. And I can tell now when it's not my own. And so that's part of the work that we're going to do when I see her is my anxiety is for a purpose. It's not just to fucking debilitate me. And
yeah, and how much better would that be to be able to deal with your anxiety knowing that you're channeling it towards something that is beneficial or something you can control, or even just knowing what it's about, rather than just going through this horrible experience.
Yeah. I mean, it can be, for me, it can be very debilitating, and it's caused me to not want to leave my house for periods of time, or not travel, not want to like even see my friends that I don't get to see often, and just all kinds of things, not sleeping, and endless amounts of things. And since I've been doing a lot of work on myself lately and I'm more in tune with it, I've been able to handle the anxiousness better because I can tell now that it's not always mine.
That's awesome.
Which is, it's kind of a cool thing. So I just actually over the week,
keep me updated.
This last weekend, I actually just went to the crystal store, and my therapist and my friend had me pick up salt rock that I'm going to put in different areas of the house. Like, I have a salt lamp, but I'm going to put actual salt rock crystals because it helps absorb the negative ions and the negative energy. So I'm kind of learning, and that's partly my daughter Mandy too. I mean, she kind of got me started in that. So I'm kind of learning how crystals can be healing, and you have to have an open mind to different healing versus just popping a pill for something. Or
Rachel and I really got into all of that stuff after we talked to the gal that read our cards and everything. So it was really interesting. I was getting into like the crystals and stuff like that. Ooh, exciting. Don't forget to go to FreakyFridaysPodcast.com and subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast listening platform.
Join us next week for a new freaky tale.